Hey, everyone. I love seeing everyone already on. This is incredible. We're going to have such a great call here soon. We're going to give everybody at least a minute or two to pop on. I'm sending links just to remind everybody because that's what leaders do. I know I need reminders as well sometimes. So check if you're not seeing even a teammate or a sideline on here, you love on them privately and say, get your booty here. So we'll give everybody a minute or two and then we'll get started. Oh man, I love seeing people, so many pop on. It is 8 o'clock sharp. And so we're going to get started because we are aware leaders and we do not waste time. And so I know that people are slowly going to keep popping on, and that is a-okay. What's beautiful about this is there is a recording. So if they miss the first minutes, they can go back and check in what they missed. But what is powerful is I am curious who's read all 3 chapters so far that they were supposed to catch up on. Yeah, oh, I love it. Okay, good for y'all. I'm so proud of you. You guys, this book is tiny. You literally could do the Audible in I think it's less than 3 hours. And that's what I did. I did the Audible. I'm one that I'm a reader, but I'm also a listener. So I like listening and highlighting as I go. And that's my favorite. Do whatever you have to figure out to do. It costs me double, but I don't care. I learn and I receive more when I do that. But this book, I will tell you, Tamara Holloway is my upline, and Jessica Heffley, and they are powerful leaders. And this is one that Tamara Holloway just did with us. And I was like, all right, Christina, we have to do this with our teams. And I am so grateful because I think that sometimes us as leaders, we have to question ourselves more, right? Because we have to point the finger back at us in our business when something's not going right, or when something, we have to be aware. And so I really loved everything about this call or this book because it asks those questions. So I hope that you are truthful and honest. Now, on these book clubs, how I format them, and I always telling Christina and Sarah, is that this is interactive. This is not Cassie talking all time or Christina talking all time. This is you guys sharing what your takeaways were, what stood out to you, what you highlighted, things of that nature, because that's what book clubs are about. We're here sharing what our takeaways are so that we can learn and glean from each other. So no, if there's silence, I might call you out in a very loving way, because I want this call to be informative for all of us. So we're going to dive in. And so chapter 1 is become good at leading yourself. And the first question was, what has been your greatest challenge as a leader? And so I'm going to ask you guys, what do you feel like in your business, no matter where you're at, what do you feel like has been your biggest challenge as a leader?
Thinking that I'm a leader.
Thinking that you're a leader?
Yes.
Okay, tell me more.
Just thinking that I'm a leader, like I can't do this, the negative stuff that comes in your mind when you're trying to lead a new team. So just thinking I'm not a leader.
Oh, you're not a leader. Okay. Now I didn't hear the not part. I was like, okay, got it. This makes sense now. Okay. Who else? Your greatest.
I was going to say the same thing.
The same thing, Charity?
Hard to lead when you don't think you're a leader.
I was going to say it's difficult for sometimes I find myself am I wanting it more for somebody else than they want it for themselves? So that's a struggle that I find. I was a toss up between that. And then the other one was leading people that are not like you. So like, I think like everybody's like me. So they want to be loved on and like hyped up and talked at and all the things, but that's not always the case.
And that's a great one to touch on, because you have to almost do like a strength finders or love language or something with your team, because that's, like you said, how you are, but what if Christina doesn't learn that way? Or what if she doesn't care about encouragement? She's like, you send me a handwritten note, I'll do whatever for you. You shout me out, I'll do whatever for you. But if you're trying to encourage her in a loving way, and you keep hyping her up, and she's like, who the heck are you, Cassie? I mean, it might not be her thing. And so you have to figure out what his or her thing is to help motivate them and moving them forward. So who else? And then I want to go back to the leader part, because I have some topics on that too. Your biggest challenge as a leader. Anybody else? So right now we have thinking you're not a leader. I have definitely been there, and honestly was there until about a year or two ago. So think all the way up to Emerald. I still didn't think I was a leader. So no, it still happens.
I'd say the same. And leading myself. That's one of the things I took away, is it's hard to be a leader when you're not leading yourself well. And I feel like I don't lead myself well.
And how would that look like if you started leading yourself well? What does that look like?
I feel like it would carry over into being able to lead others and give me a sense that if I can lead myself, I can lead others.
What does leading yourself look like?
Discipline. Bottom line, discipline.
Right? We all can get carried away, and time can and definitely get by us, every single one of us. But yeah, discipline. I was watching a movie the other day, and I was thinking, Genevieve said the best thing about, could you imagine if you were on an airplane going to Hawaii and the captain was like, hey, we're going to try to make ourselves to Hawaii. We're going to try. I'm going to try my best. But like, if he didn't go through all the checklists and everything before he got on that plane and kept moving, could you imagine? You'd be like, peace out, get me off this plane. That's what we have to do in our business. We have to be disciplined enough to go through the checklists and go through the things that don't feel like you want to do it, right? There's days you don't want to lead, guarantee it. I promise you, especially when you get no's all day long, or when you have teammates that are like, I'm done, Cassie, I'm not doing this anymore. Oh my gosh, I got my first no, and I got blah, 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 right? Then you have to put on your big girl or big boy. I'll say boy now. We got guys on here. I love it. Your big pants. Okay. And you have to realize, wait, I have to lead more people and myself. And so that's the thing to like really be aware of, is you're going to have challenges, but what are you going to do with those challenges? And church the other day was talking about how much we allow Satan to giggle, like, oh, I'm not a good leader. I'm not worthy of a leader. Why would people follow me? And Satan is on the other side. I'm getting her. I'm getting to her weaknesses. And that's exactly what I want to do. And so know that it's like 80% mindset, that if you can fix your mindset and be an aware leader, you can move forward in this business. Okay. So the next thing that I highlighted was the toughest person to lead is always yourself. We have met the enemy, and he is us. That's why you need to become good at leading yourself and the discipline to lead yourself, right? Leaders who aren't focused aren't as efficient as they could be. Could you imagine if we were all efficient and we actually got past a negative mindset and the things that were slowing us down, what we could actually do in our business? Judge for yourself. And this is on page 4. If you want a better team and a better organization that produces better results, you need to become better at leading yourself. Most leaders need to worry less about the competition because other people aren't because other people aren't more successful. As leaders, we often hold ourselves back. Why? Why do we hold ourselves back? And I'll tell you, for me, I think holding myself back was more of an uncomfortability. I did not want to get uncomfortable. Like, you have me lead a team call. I cried back then, you guys. Might not look like it now, but I bawled after every single time because I was like, oh my gosh, what are they going to think about me? Oh my God, la, 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 like all these things. And that's what I was so uncertain, and why I wanted to keep moving forward, or not wanting to keep moving forward, is because I had to do the things I didn't want to do. And
The quote that stuck out for me for this section was, we tend to judge others according to their actions and results, and then we tend to judge ourselves by our intentions. And I think that, like, I can be very sympathetic to people in their intentions. So I don't know if that's true on, like, it's, of course it's partly true, but I don't know how hard that is for me. But certainly, like, in terms of self-reflection, I know that I tend to judge myself by my intentions. Well, I tried to do this, or this is what I wanted to do, or, you know, I wanted to try my best, or I did try my best, but I didn't actually accomplish it, or I didn't actually do it. Or there's always an excuse or a justification for why, you know, something came up. So I think that if we can reverse that, if we can be merciful and gracious to others, and then if we can hold ourselves and have that self-control and discipline, I think that flips the script a little bit. I really like what he said there.
oh yeah, I had that whole thing highlighted, the one you just said. And John Maxwell just said it at convention, right? Your best excuse is your worst excuse because you believe it. And I think we excuse ourselves out of every single thing we don't want to do. And the intentions of it, and how we tend, what you said, you know, how we tend to judge others according to their actions and their results. Well, she's a nurse, that's why she has so much, and I'm just not, I don't have those qualifications, or all these things, right? Well, she's just better at communicating, that's why, or he's just better at doing this. Why can't you? You know?
You know, I'm going to even flip that. How many times in our business do we say, well, if they just showed up and were consistent, then they would be growing. And meanwhile, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people in the last 2 months, and I'm not naming names. It's not even anybody necessarily on this call, but people say things like, my team has only added 7 people this month. And then when you ask them how many they've added, they're like, oh, well, none. And so it's like, you have an excuse for why you're not in action, why you're not, you know, the kids were sick. I was really busy. I had to take on this, I had to take on that. But you're like, she should be showing up, and she should be consistent, and she should be reaching out. So like, definitely both of those things are, I think it's easier for us to think of all the times we compare ourselves to people we think are better than us and how we fall short. However, I don't think that we really take time to consider that, you know, they have the same excuses I have, but maybe if I lead by example, despite all the possible excuses, that's going to inspire people to get in action. Because they always say the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. And this, I feel like, is a perfect example of that.
We never want to shine the light on ourselves, right? So good. Because if we can shine the light on somebody else, but look, you know, they're not doing anything, and they're not da-da-da. Well, I mean, I love John Maxwell. Anything he says is just powerful, but we just have to keep, just like speed of the team is, or speed of the leader is speed of the team. You have to start doing, even if you're like, well, I keep trying to do Zoom calls every night, nobody shows up. You're showing up. That's don't keep canceling them. You're the one doing the messenger events and nobody comes. Keep doing them. Consistency will get better the more that you keep showing up and doing those things. And you have to be your own leader. Okay, what else? What's some other good takeaways?
I also had highlighted, only a leader who has followed well knows how to lead others well. And Christina can probably attest to this. When I first started, I feel like I was a much better follower. She was leading, I was following. She would tell me to do something, I did it. And then it's like I hit this point where it's like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good. And then I quit. I quit following, and then I quit adding, and now I've just been stagnant for 18 plus months. So it's getting back to that, learning to follow learned followership and getting back into doing, following the example that's been set.
One of the things that really stuck out to me was on the first chapter, he was talking about practicing patience. That was like one of his little highlights. And he said, the point of leadership isn't to cross the finish line first, it's to take people across with you. And it says, deliberately slow your pace, stay connected with your people, and encourage them to stay the vision and bring your people along with you. That was really powerful to me because I have a tendency to just plow. Like that is totally my personality. And Cassie's laughing. She knows. I'm just like, let's go. You ask my family, they're the same, like they'll tell you the same way. If I have something, my mind is set, I just go. And I'm not used to stopping and trying to bring other people with me. It's not that my intentions are to plow over people, but it's that I just think of it, okay, that's my goal, that's where I'm headed. But this community and this teaching, I guess, I don't know, the words are hard tonight, people, but it's helping me realize that, you know, the Lord teaches us the important part of getting places is taking people with us and impacting lives. And that was so incredibly powerful for me to hear, because I was just like, Julia, you've got to slow down. And I even considered for a minute, I'm like, what would it look like if I were to just completely not even think about, now I know Cassie may just be like, wait a minute, hold on. But what would it look like if I didn't even think about the ranking as much as I did just trying to grow all of the other people, you know? And it was very enlightening to me because I'm like, that is what I need to do, because like, it's really, truly not important. The rank is not important. It's the people that are the important part. So that was really powerful to me.
Julia, that's so good. I don't have the book in front of me because Keith has the book and I have the audibles, but what really, I think it's called, he had the two types of people. Was it Climber was one of them? And I was, you know, I'm reading this book and I'm like, okay, I'm sure that I'm going to have moments where I really need to just press in and have some self-awareness. I feel like I'm pretty good at this. I open the book and start talking about Climber and I'm like, that's me. I just plow right over people. I was like 2 seconds into the book and I'm already, and to your point, like, you know, servant leadership is something that we need to really stop and press into.
In the same area, I loved under practicing patience, how he said microwave leaders don't have any staying power. Leadership is more than a crock pot proportion. It takes time, but the end product is worth the wait. When I first started, like my first 3 came so fast just from, you know, my experience and what I was doing. And then I wanted to keep up on that momentum, and I was just vomiting Plexus without stopping to say, well, what is it that your needs are? Or what is it that, you know, you're looking for to change, and ask those questions to really get to know the person. It was just so important for me to like throw out all the information I knew. And now right now it seems to keep coming up. Like today on Motivation Monday, it was all about, you know, building your social media about, you know, you and building that trust and how you show yourself in your daily life and what your recommendations are, and then sprinkle in the Plexus. And I it keeps coming up for me, and I'm like, oh my God, I really need to know what, you know, I'm doing well and work on that right now and developing that. And then as you know, I spark these conversations, get into knowing what people want for their own wellness, and go from there. And I really loved that part in practicing patience. And I think that even like plays into the conversations I'm having.
Oh, for sure. I think that sometimes we, you know, when there's a goal in front of us and I'm like, oh my gosh, but I got this one's about to just sign up. But if you only got to spend maybe just a few more minutes, that would have way more retention. And crock pot positioning than microwave, right? Because if you're actually getting to know their underneath things that are happening in their life, and oh my gosh, I didn't realize your son had that for so long. Tell me more. What have you tried? Like, and really dug deeper, they're going to feel like you're actually listening a little bit more, right? Don't you feel that way when somebody's actually listening to your conversations? Don't you feel like they really truly care about you as a friend and beyond? Or well, like when you I think of it as a doctor, when they walk in and I'm like, yep, I've got PCOS and all this stuff. I can barely move, blah, blah. Oh, here, take this. Okay, bye. Peace out. And that's kind of, I mean, we can get that way even just selling as well. Like, oh, Reset's gonna be great for you. Here, great, here's the link. Hope you have a great time. We forget to dig deeper, because if not, we don't get to the root. And if we aren't patient enough, we are going to keep having microwave issues, and we're going to continually have that cycle of always being at a certain rank, or always having the same scenarios continually happening in our business, because we never raise that lid to figure out what's going on. What can I get better at? And this is what I liked about here is the questions he had on page 10. It often goes like this. It says, I don't want advice. Like, there's some people, when you first start, you're like, I don't need advice. I know everything, right? I don't need your advice. I don't object to any advice. I'll hear you, but I don't know if I'll hear you. I'll think about it, right? And then you welcome advice. You're like, no, like, give me everything you have. I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to dive in. I want to be better. I want to be that self-aware leader and get advice from people. And then you're seeking it through actively seeking it. I know that's where I was at when I was Emerald. I was seeking advice everywhere I could because I wanted to continually grow. And then I often follow the advice that I'm given. We all have gotten advice, right? All of us. Sometimes we don't want that advice. And sometimes we don't even want or like that advice, and we don't even take it. But here's the thing. It'll be a continual cycle if we don't take the advice that is given to us, especially if it's given us by leaders we admire and love, because it's hurtful and we don't want to hear it. But sometimes those things that hurt you is just a trigger. It's a feeling. Feelings are not facts, right? That's the best thing Jessica Heffley, I love her, always says, feelings are not facts. These are people trying to literally advance you and help you. And so when we take it as a trigger, we have to look back at ourselves of like, wait, I asked for advice. Let me move forward and figure out, how can I move forward in this? And what can I do better? And what can I seek or ask other questions in? Another book that I'm reading alongside of this is You're the Girl for the Job. It is an incredible book. I highly recommend it. It kind of goes alongside of leadership and just everything in life. So I really love that, because he says, the willingness to seek and accept advice is a great indicator of accountability and a leader who is maturing and improving. You guys, when you could take advice without getting heated or frustrated or triggered, then you know that you're improving. So that was a huge thing of being aware that I stood out to me. Okay.
I actually had a win with that,
Yeah.
because I had called a friend the other day or a couple weeks ago needing advice. And I was like, I almost don't want to call her because I know she's going to give me advice. And like, I needed advice, but I almost was like, am I humble enough to take it? Like, I had to ask myself that.
Mm-hmm.
And since that conversation, I had like just seen, like, I was like, I've been praying for the Lord just to help me to have a humble heart and a teachable spirit. And then I've been seeing other people have a humble and teachable spirit. Like, there's another friend that I have in Plexus, and I saw she was commenting like, oh, I want to learn all the things. And just her eagerness to want to learn just was like inspired me, like, oh, like, I want to have a teachable spirit too. Like, I love what you said, Clarissa, about like in the beginning you followed and then you stopped. And like the other day I was doing a coaching call and my husband was in the room and I got off and I was like, okay, critique me. Like, what did you think about that? Like, he didn't know I was going to ask him that beforehand. So, but before I would not have done that. And so now I'm like, I can see the progression, and you're like, okay, it is so good. Especially, I'm like, when you have people that you trust and that love you, giving you that advice when you know they're not like out to hurt you, really helps.
Hey,
go
can you
ahead.
hear me?
Yeah,
Sorry,
we can.
my nails are so long, guys. I can't touch anything on my computer. It's freaking out. Anyway, I love what you said, Sarah. I remember I just went to Gold School in DC, and Celeste Gwen was there, and I thought she was going to be a speaker, but she wasn't. She went because she earned it. And I love what she said. This is Celeste Gwen, like top earner. Like, if there's anything to know in Plexus, she could write the book. And she's like, I love learning. I can always learn from these trainings and take away from other ambassadors and people that I meet. And I'm like, if Celeste Gwen feels that way, then who am I? Like, my tendency is always like, I don't know if they know more than me. If Celeste Gwen can humble herself and like lead that way, that was just so inspiring to me to be like, you know what, no matter where we are, we need to be humble enough to be willing to learn and hear what other people have to say. So I love that.
Yeah. And Sarah, that happened to me recently. Jason, my husband, was saying something and I was not in the mood to listen. I'll just be honest. I was in a like, oh, what? You try what? And he was just like, Cassie, you're spending all these hours behind a screen messaging all these people. I think you need to do something differently. I think you need to like, why aren't you going out and, doing mom dates or things of that nature? And I was like, well, fine. I don't know. I was just in a mood. Okay. But then later that night, I humbled myself and I realized like, he's so true. We're in a society, we're behind this too much. And I realized that's where I was getting comfortable. And I wasn't putting myself out there anymore of going and having dates, like literally go date people, go have mom dates, go have, play dates, things of that nature. And I was like, all right, new accomplishment. I'm going to try to be humble when my husband's right. Not going to tell him that right now. He's inside, but that he was, and I'm going to start dating people. So again, I love that, Sarah, even though we don't want to hear it sometimes, but seeking it so that we know that that's how we grow. So, okay. Moving to chapter 2. Chapter 2, know and work within your strengths. So I'm going to ask you, says, find out what you do well and keep on doing it. What do you feel like you do well? I want to hear. What do you feel like you do well? Here's the problem. If you don't know that already, you've got to seek it now and seek it from other people, or you're going to continue doing this. So what do you feel like you do well?
I struggled with this chapter. I got to this chapter and I started reading it and got to the questions at the end and was like, I have no idea. I have no idea what to write because I think Satan has attacked so much. I'm like, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know. We focus so much on what we're not good at that I really don't have anything written down for what I'm good at. And that was like,
can I share something you're good at?
So really digging into that.
Because my gifting is being an encourager. So something that Clarissa is very, very good at is that she loves her people so, so well. She can go out on a coffee date and like we used to do this thing when we would first sign people up where, well, not, I was first signing people up. She had been with Plexus for more than I had. And we would literally tell the person's entire life story and like, we would be like, oh my gosh, and this is what happened. And I'm starting her on this combo and I'm so excited and that is like, Clarissa loves her people so well and it's evidenced in her level of retention. So that's something that Clarissa is good at.
Thank you.
But do you receive that, Clarissa? That's
hard too. I'm learning to receive when somebody does that because it's always been like, oh, well, oh, okay, well, thanks. And sweeping it under the rug, but recognizing and going, oh, okay. And reading that, where it said, ask people. So I was like, all right, this is going to be hard. Like to ask people, can you tell me what I'm good at? And then believe it.
Yeah. Well, I think that the problem is we don't realize God gives everybody a gift, right? We all have gifts. Not everybody is going to be a connector like you because other people are going to have a different gift. Could you imagine if we were all connectors? We would never have people being leaders or anything else, right? We'd all be connecting with the world and encouraging the world, and that's great, but like our world would fall apart, right? Like we need everybody's giftings to impact the world. And so it is okay to ask people for what your giftings are, because the most times when you don't see it, it's because you don't want to recognize it. I think you know it, but it's more, you don't want to feel, you want to humble yourself like, oh no, I'm fine. It's just, I just love it. I just love people. And the thing is that's just your gifting. We should be strong about that. Like, no, I'm a freaking best encourager ever. You come around, I'm going to cheerlead you like no other, or whatever it is. You need to own it because he crafted you, only you, for that gift. you know, because Nicole's gift of encouragement is going to look different than my gift of encouragement. She might have a tweak on it that's different from mine. And so we have to own our own things that God crafted for us. So I'm going to read some of the ones but we have to receive it, because if we don't ever receive it, then we're going to keep staying stagnant, right? You know, we have to grow in our ability to grow as leaders in what we're gifted in, but then grab those other people that are it's in here, I think. Grab those other people that are great at numbers, like Shara. Shara's my girl for numbers, you know, and other people that are gifted in other things, because that's what makes a whole as a team. You can't just have all encouragers or all, you know, people that do numbers. You need a group of other people. And that's where we seek out those others that have those other giftings. So I'm going to read some of these. So some said encouragement and discernment. That's a good one. Health, education, encouragement, numbers, figuring out the rules. I'm a good connector. I'm friendly, love working with a team and bringing a team together. Learning to consistently compliment people on what they do well. Yes. Okay. I'm liking these. Who else? Really quick. What else are you good at?
So last year at Leaders Retreat, Christina can vouch for this. We were on the bus to an event, and Christina and I were talking, and this person in front of us turned around and was joining the conversation without an invitation. But she said this to me, and this was last March, and I have struggled with it since then. She turned around and she said, "Oh, so you're a great recruiter, but you're not a leader." I don't know this person. She's not my friend. And I have struggled with that phrase ever since last March.
Can I ask why? Why have you allowed one negative thought to control you versus probably a whole? I think that's the one thing that all of us remember, right? We all remember the negative things, but we forget the positive things that happen in life. The sermon that we had with Chad Veach the other day, he said, we carry 60,000 negative thoughts a day, 60,000 that go through our mind. And it's crazy to me that why are we so focused on the negative things that people say in our lives to crumble us? I mean, if it's literally bothered you that long, that is something that we need to work through, and don't allow Satan to hold you down on that, because he's excited. You still are holding on to that one person he could get in your way, one person, but yet you have a whole team of people that can probably tell you beautiful things about yourself right now. One person crumbling you, because he knew if he could have that one person sit beside you and say that, you wouldn't be growing, you wouldn't be moving, you wouldn't be leading, you wouldn't be carrying other people. And that is what stops us in our footsteps when we have one negative comment. And so I empower you to receive whatever. I'm going to have everybody that's on Charity's team share one positive thing about her in her private messages, because if you're a words of affirmation girl like I am, because obviously if you're carrying that for that long, you are. A lot of us, like most women, most men too, are 80% words of affirmation. And we need to carry more weight on positive thinking than we do negative thinking. And so I encourage you to do that. Like really hone in on what you are good at and what you can. Read the book, You Are the Girl for the Job, because she talks about this exactly right there. That'll be a good book for you.
This is not on the book, but I think that because this came up, I wanted to share this. At Leaders Retreat 2018, the last cruise, Jessica Heffley did this visual where she said, I'm going to put something on the screen and I want you to look at the red. Anything that's red, I want you to look at it. So she put it up for like 5-10 seconds. She pulled it down and she's like, what percentage of the board do you think was red? And everybody's like 85%, 90%. I didn't see anything but red. It was all red. And then she put the board back up and less than 5% of this board was red. But because that's what we were focused on, that's all we could see. And the point of the visual was to say, and this is a biblical concept, to like take our thoughts captive and surrender them to truth and what God says about us. And when we do that, the actual board was yellow and blue and beautiful. And if you were looking at the actual board, you wouldn't even notice there was red in it. And that's true of our whole lives. And I think that that's not just for charity right now. I think that's for all of us, for me included. Like, let's be self-aware leaders here. We all struggle with that, but it is biblical to take our thoughts captive. And I love that visual to just kind of remember when the enemy's trying to tell you everything is red and you're never going to succeed and you're not good enough and you aren't. I'll tell you right now that I actually think I told Cassie this, every year since 2016 was my first convention, I'd come home and get in a huge funk. And I remember that first year crying and I couldn't even get out of bed because I was like, I will never be like those beautiful Barbie doll diamonds. And it took me a while to pull myself out of it. And every year it would still happen. And here I am, almost sapphire. I get to stand on that stage. I get to sweep the contest now. I work, my team has done incredible things. And I came home and found myself in a funk where I wasn't even realizing what it was. And then I was like, wait a second, I'm still believing the lie that I will never be a beautiful Barbie doll diamond. And that's, first of all, not even what I'm called to be. But of course, like, I'm a jewel and I've got to believe and show up like the diamond that, like, God didn't bring me to this opportunity to just taunt me with it. Like, that's not what the point is. He didn't put these desires in our heart, but we've got to put our hand to the plow. So I just want to remind you that when the enemy's reminding you the red on the board, to take that thought captive and to really flip it around so that you can see everything the Lord is saying about you and be able to then receive what other people, the good things other people are saying about you. Sorry, that was a rant, but I just had to go on it.
No, but it's a powerful rant, because I think that that's something that we don't tend to do, is be so aware of the fact that, and a lot of us can get into funks, right? No matter where you're at in your business, diamond, I mean, you hear it from all across the board. We all struggle with everything. So don't think that when you see somebody on stage that they didn't just cry the day before about something that's going on in their business. They just overcome it faster. That is the thing I found, is that leaders, successful leaders, they still have the valleys. They still have the things that keep them on the ground. But the difference is they pick up that dirt with them and they move forward. And so that is what I have learned throughout this. Same, I can get into comparison mode and say, and be like, well, I've been sitting Emerald for 4 years and I'm still not moving and I'm blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't do me or my team any good, right? We have to figure out what do I do well? What's my strengths now? And what can I continue to move forward in? And so really evaluate that, write those down. I always tell my team to put something positive on their mirror, because the mirror is the one thing that you're going to see every single day. And you have to wake up with a positive thing, because if not, Satan is going to attack the first moment you wake up. We used to do motivational Monday, or motivational calls every single day in our chat. Like, here's a 3-minute one. Here's a 5-minute one I found. Here's a whatever, because if you can start your day with positive things, you will end your day with positive things. And so I do a dry erase marker on my mirror, and it might be like, don't quit. I mean, it's so super simple, but there might be valleys where I feel like quitting, no joke. But because Satan is in the valley with me, he's trying to keep me under. And so whatever I feel like I need to be repeated, like, no, God is radically changing my business. I will keep moving forward. I will keep putting my hand to the plow. I know that I have a team coming. Raindrops are coming. I need to be visible of the raindrops that I see right now, not the ones that Satan doesn't want me to see. Raindrops are small things, like you just signed 3 people, or now you have a person that's interested in the business or whatever, but yet you're possibly stuck to the rank. Well, I'm still silver. I've been silver for 6 years, or I'm still blah, 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 right? You're still stuck on that, but you're not realizing the other colors that are happening. Just like with that, you see the red dot of what we compare ourselves to, but we forget all of this other stuff that's happening. So be very vigilant in that. On this part, on 15, it says, it took me several years to sort out all of this, find my strengths, and recruit and develop other people to compensate for my own weaknesses. That's what I was saying. Like, you can't be everything. Nobody can. And this is why you find other people that aren't in your strengths. So, okay. What else stood out to you in chapter 2? Anybody? I highlighted a lot. So
I think just the reminder of an analogy he gave of Tiger Woods, like, you keep working on your strengths. Like, that's the thing you pour into, because that was something before I ever read John Maxwell, like I would have always thought like, oh, work on your weaknesses. But just that like, oh no, like you have a strength for a reason. And which is why it's so important for you to know your strengths and then to continue to pour into those things and develop those strengths. And I think him just laying it out, like if you work on your weaknesses, like maybe you'll get a few not like points up, but if you work on your strengths, you can become a 10 in that area. And so that was just really inspiring and encouraging to me, like for my strengths, that I was like, oh no, like I said in the chat, like not everyone has my strengths, but that's the lie that I want to believe. And so if I can keep developing those and working on those, then that will, like, you know, what he said, like no one talks about the violinist, like, oh, she can't play the trumpet, like people, because no one's focused on that. So you just keep working on building up those strengths. So that was really inspiring to me.
I feel like going off of that, under like the part where it says get specific about your strengths, there was a quote and just part of it where it talks about like strengths are always specific. I feel like in my head, because I was Clarissa, you were talking about like not totally knowing your specific strengths, and I'm kind of there too. I feel like I don't want to like point them out, that's like a whole nother thing, but strengths are supposed to be specific, so it's like they're meant to be that way. They're supposed to stand out. They're not supposed to be this like thing like looming over your head, like, ooh, like I'm just this ominous thing. So I thought that like that definitely stood out to me there.
I recently read something about bank people and how they study authentic bills. And they memorize authentic bills and they look at them and they learn to see it in their sleep, what an authentic bill looks like. They don't study counterfeits to try to find the phony. They study the real thing, and then through really knowing the real thing, they can recognize any kind of counterfeit. And it kind of fits into what we're talking right now. If I know that if I'm going to speak for myself, if I focus more on my strengths, it almost seems like the strength would develop and the other stuff would either start popping up so that I can get rid of it, or they would melt away in many cases, rather than keep feeding it and trying to dissolve it by focusing on that and feeling beat up about it. So I think the greatest enemy we have is our insecurities, and the focus we put on our insecurities, which goes back to what Charity was talking about. And you were saying, why does that impact you when you don't even know this person? Because we all do that, right? We focus on these things because it taps into our insecurities. So building our strengths might be the antidote to that.
And isn't that a perfect like tie back to leading ourselves well? Because being able to take those thoughts captive and not getting lost in our insecurity, but speaking truth and working on our strengths and building that confidence is leading ourselves well. And that's why we are the hardest ones to lead, because we're all in our head all the time. And we, there's some, studies out there that say the number of thoughts we have, and it's like insanity. How many decisions we make without even really thinking, like all these things. There's a lot to control up there. That's why it's hard to lead ourselves more than anybody else. But the number one thing we can do in leading ourselves is leading ourselves to work on our strengths. And when the negative and the insecurities creep in, to have affirmations and truth that we speak, that's so automatic to us that it's not saying we're never going to have those insecurities. We're never going to come across those situations. We're human. We're all going to have that. But learning how to lead ourselves out of that.
One of my very favorite things out of these 3 chapters is where he says people's purpose in life is always connected to their giftedness. And I just kind of sat for a moment and let that sink in and just really thought about how God's plan is just so awesome, because he's not going to call us to focus and do something that he hasn't already gifted us to do.
Amen. Amen. And then to add on that, good leaders don't become effective by default or appointed by pity. It's because of what God has given us. And that's where we grow. That's how we become good leaders is our strength in what we already have, not focusing on what we don't. I really like the Tiger Woods thing because I got a visual of John Maxwell trying to golf. Like and trying to be Tiger Woods. And I'm like, but no, John, you're not Tiger Woods. Come on now. And he's like, I could practice it. I might be great, but that's not my strength. And I kept picturing, could you imagine John Maxwell going, nope, I'm going to now become the next Tiger Woods. We'd all be lost because we wouldn't be gained by his giftings. Like, think about that. We would all be at a loss if he did not use his strengths. And he decided he was going to go be somebody else and be Tiger Woods and start golfing now. Think of that with you. People are going to lose out on what they can gain from you because you aren't in your strengths and you're not using them because that's what God gave you. That was my picture when he was saying that. I'm like, I could not imagine John Maxwell not being the incredible leader that he is right now and giving us all, like literally all of this. He doesn't have to do this, but he does. And he's like, I'm just going to go golf instead. It's easier that way. I can go just, sounds horrible, but I can just go push a ball here and there and it's fine. I won't have to worry about people anymore. Like, think of that. We all can get to that way where we don't want to be comfortable or we don't want to get uncomfortable in our strengths. And anyway, think of that. Think of the leader that you gain a lot of influence and love from. And then they decide to do something else because they're like, that's not my gifting anymore. I'm done. I'm like, what? Yeah, it's easier to watch Netflix. Exactly.
My daughter often says, I'm extra, and she embraces it. And that has taught me so much because what she's really saying is I am this big personality. And I have spent my whole life trying to not be that personality because people would say, you're so much. And she just embraces it. And I love that she does that because she's taught me something. I literally went into the counseling office to talk about a student one day. And I said, listen, I'm extra. Get over it. And they laughed and they were able to embrace that and understand what I was trying to say with my passion and all that. So learning to embrace who we are is also really important. And also listen to your kids. Your adult children have a lot to say about you. It's not easy to listen to or hear sometimes, but they have your back and it is the best counsel you can get.
I love it. The book that I keep referencing is the Girl for the Job. The last chapter I just read was, you might be too much for other people. And she's like, how's your muchness? As in, like, you have to realize your much might be too much for others. And that doesn't mean that you're lacking. And so sometimes when you feel like you're ghosted or nobody's replying or, your senior goal that was supposed to stay with you or your goal that was supposed to run with you decided you're too much, it's because they don't want to get uncomfortable. They know that you're going to push them out of their comfort zones to do more. And so it doesn't matter what your muchness is. It might be too much for somebody else until they're ready for it. And so I loved that when you said that. I was like, oh my gosh, I just read that. So
it was Sadie Hershaway who said to me years ago in one of her passion rants to me, she said to me, Christina, we're network marketers. We are not vanilla people. And and that really stuck with me because we do it differently. And people like the path of least resistance. But like, she wore it with such a badge of honor that I'm like, I'm a network marketer. I'm not vanilla. And if you only want vanilla, fine. I might not be your flavor right now, but if you want all the flavors and, all the options, then maybe I'm your girl. And I'm proud of that.
Agree. Okay. I'm going to keep going and then we're going to close up. So we're not on this, I could go on hours, you guys. This is so good. Okay. On page 20, I really liked this. I really wanted to say, if you don't have a competitive advantage, don't compete. People don't pay for average. If you don't have the talent to do something better than others, find something else to do that leverages your abilities. And I thought that was something that we all need to think about. Like, we're all good. We're all probably 10%. We all know 10% more of the average person. So what can you offer other people that most people don't know? Maybe you know how to make sourdough bread. Maybe you know how to work out or run or weightlift or what garden, whatever. It's probably more than the average person. So use those abilities and leverage them. That's your strength. And I really liked his question. Is someone else doing what, or wait, he says, if you're not sure how to judge your own abilities, ask yourself these following questions. Is someone else doing what I am doing? Are they doing it well? Are they doing it better than I am? Can I become better than they are? If I do better, if I become better, what will be the result? If I don't become better, what will be the result? Discover your uniqueness and then discipline yourself to develop it. Good leaders who are self-aware don't just help themselves. They help the people on their team to find their strengths as well, and they empower them to work in their strengths. So you guys, lift your team up. Whenever you see something, I'm like, oh my gosh, you rocked at that post. Great post. Like, wow, I love how you hosted your own Zoom the other night. You were an incredible person to watch. Like, I'm telling you, those little bitty things, that might be their insecurity that they don't want to do it ever again. Whatever you see in somebody, always share. Because think of it, when people share that with you, how it uplifts you. By you sharing with them, it uplifts them as well. Okay, we're going to close out. We're going to close out that chapter unless there's one more thing that y'all want to say on that.
I did have one more thing I highlighted. Working on a weakness in your strength zone will always produce greater results than working on a strength in a weak area.
Yes, I had that highlighted too. I think you need to say that again.
Working on a weakness in your strength zone will always produce greater results than working on a strength in a weak area.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me a page for that?
26.
I'm sorry, what?
26.
Gotcha.
Okay, chapter 3, and we're going to close up quick. We're over time, but man, this is so good. So chapter 3 is put your team ahead of your own career. And we kind of talked about this in the beginning when Julia was talking about sometimes where she just is like, and y'all, we're talking about climbers and connectors, and Christina too. It says leadership is relational more than positional, and helping the team win is much more important than winning personally. Don't get me wrong. We all want to win personally, right? But when we win together, we are a much stronger team. I think of a rope. When you have 3 cords in a strand, it's stronger than one, right? It can break with one. And so think of it that way of really leading and developing your other people alongside of you. People do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. What else stood out in chapter 3 for you? I'm going to go inside as y'all chat for a second.
I really loved when he gave that example of he had to go and develop his own stuff, his own material. He wanted to take his church through that stewardship month. And it just was like that reminder of like, even John Maxwell had to get in the trenches. He had to slow down. He had to take months to put something together. And then look how that took off. And I love just his vulnerability of being like, I almost didn't want to share it with other people. And so I think just for me as a leader being like, because sometimes I'm like, oh, well, they already do it so well. Like that Diamond already does it that well and does that well. But I mean, how long has the church been around? Like, I'm sure there's been material about stewardship, but John Maxwell didn't have what he needed for his church. And so it just made me think about for our teams, like, yeah, there could be a recruitment video out that you could follow, but like your team might need to hear it from you. You might need to be the one to step up and add your flavor to it, your thing, whatever you need to say about it. And that could be the thing, just like for John Maxwell, for him, like it ended up being a huge impact even though he might not have thought that he, like he even said, like he was surprised that it was such a big success. So I really loved that story.
Me too. And then he didn't wait for somebody else to do it. He was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to make it my own. I'm gonna have to figure it out. And I think that sometimes we lean on, and I did this for a long time, don't get me wrong. And that's why I was in the trenches for a long time, is I don't have an upline. And so it was just like, well, if I only had an upline, if I only had blah, 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 I would already be blah, 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 right? But I could have just did what John Maxwell did and like, oh, well, I'm not seeing this. Maybe I can go ahead and create it. Why don't I just go ahead and start leading calls? Why don't I just go ahead and start leading blah, blah, blah. It's a lot easier when we excuse our excuses. Like, oh, well, so. Really quick, what did everybody think about climbers and connectors? Did that hit hard? How did you feel when that was brought up? Everybody that afraid to talk about it? Guess what? Isn't even John Maxwell talked about, he was a climber and still is, but he's found ways to be more connecting in the climb. Like, and that's what I took away from it at the end. Like he can still desire to climb, but you can still be a good connector. Go ahead, Christina.
I think he was getting at the fact that you kind of have to have a mixture of both. Like there needs to be a balance. It was definitely eye-opening. I definitely have a tendency to be a climber. So it was really good to just kind of reflect on that and recognize, and then just take a second to say, okay, well, how can I better connect?
And also too, like I'm very naturally also a climber, and find it sometimes hard to understand why other people aren't also climbers. So I think what I can take from this is that like there are people on my team specifically that are very gifted as connectors. And what if we combined that together and really complemented each other's, I'm going to call them inadequacies, but like complement each other in that way to lead in a better way. Or learn from what they're super good at to tweak my own leadership.
And that's the humbleness part too, right? That we talked about earlier. Like we also, if we want to glean on each other, we also have to become humble when it's like, all right, Cassie, you're climbing too much. Let's go back. Let's calm it down. You know what I mean? I'm going to read this part really quick. It says, if you connect well, but possess little desire to improve yourself or your career, people may like you, but you may not possess the drive or develop the authority to actually accomplish anything. If you're a natural connector, work to increase your energy and intensify your sense of purpose and urgency. The most effective leaders always manage to balance both connecting and climbing while advancing their teams. And that's what I was saying earlier. It's like, kind of have to find the balance of two, because if you're not a climber, nobody's going to want to follow you. Like if you're not taking your team to the top with you, and if you're not showing them how to win, then nope, you can connect all day long, right? We can connect and encourage and whatever, but nobody's going to want to stay with you if they're not going to feel like you're going to help them climb too. So. Yeah, a leader's goal should be to make friends and gain authority.
And I feel like sometimes I can be in different relationships, swap back and forth. Like if you feel like, say I have somebody join who I feel is already very successful, I will find myself falling into that connector mode because I don't feel adequate to be a climber to take them with me. And then there'll be people on my team who very much have zero experience, maybe they haven't, and I feel much more equipped to be a climber and bring them with me. So it's finding that you need to do both. Anyway, does that make sense? Like,
yeah, completely. I mean, you have to think of it like if I like I have a brand new VIP, she's an incredible gym instructor. Yeah, her billboard is in Branson, Missouri. Like her face is planted somewhere. Am I intimidated? Just a little bit, but does that not make me a leader that can help her climb in this industry too, if that all is possible? I have to have and find the confidence inside of me to realize if I can help climb these other people, I can climb the successful people too. And so I think it's just that mindset shift of realizing that you have the capability as well as any other person, especially the person that comes in that's already successful in our eyes, right? It might be shown that she's got a billboard, but what if she's struggling with mindset? And what if she's struggling with actually leading her organization? We don't know, but maybe that's what I can help her with. So. Exactly. These people choose to join you. So they want to climb with you, not
sorry. I was gonna say, I love the progression that he does. And I'm on like an iPad, so it's not an actual real page number, but he says like how his thinking changed from a climber to a connector. And it was like, I want to win and you can too. I want to win with you. I want you to win and I'll win too.
Page 38. I loved that climb to where you really can recognize, like, I want to win. And then you're like, wait, I want to win, but you can too. And it's like, wait, let me do another step. I want to win with you now. Oh, no, wait, let's get better. I want to win and I'll help you. Like I'll win with you too. Like we're both going to win now. Says success is fleeting, but relationships are lasting. Anything else on that chapter that you guys were like mind blown from?
I think we can be all of those things, differing degrees of it. We can learn to be a climber. We can learn to be a connector. We're going to have more of one than the other, but certainly, and that's part of our growth. So we're not limited to what we have been. We can always learn to be more. Or we may have been a climber, and because of life, we kind of fell away from that. And you can go back to that because maybe that's your original wiring. That's what caused you to do things in life and but you know what I mean? And you heard one too many times that you were extra, you know, and then you said, oh, you know, and then that happened, but we don't have to stay there. That was my takeaway. You can always grow into what you need because God has given us everything we need for this life to succeed.
Agree. Who else? Last takeaways. Who has really loved these 3 chapters already? You're not even done. Like these 3 chapters are already mind-blowing. I cannot wait to keep diving in with you guys because I feel like at the end of this book, you're gonna grow in tremendous ways. So you're gonna be so aware. You're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna start recognizing my team. I'm going to start realizing that it's not just my rank, it's their rank too. I'm gonna start connecting better and climbing. I can still climb. It's about the balance. I'm going to just be better at taking positive thoughts versus negative thoughts and holding those captive and receiving praises and things that I'm good at because those are my strengths and abilities that God gave me, not Christina, not anybody else. And so really, really hone in on that. And I think that sometimes we download this stuff, but now you have to also take it and do something with it. And I think that's the one thing that we do with book studies is you really need to start implementing all these things that you're learning. So I empower you as a challenge. What are you going to start? You don't have to tell me right now, but really think about this week. What are you going to start changing that you've learned this week? Take some of the 3 chapters and take 1 to 3 things and start implementing those things with your team now and yourself. So that's my challenge to you. And maybe even for accountability, tell your sponsor what that is. And maybe you're even asking those questions of like, maybe ask your sponsor, what can I do better? What do you see? Humble yourself, just like Sarah said, humble yourself, even knowing when you don't want to ask them that maybe that's what's holding you back. And they're willing and loving. They love you. They will tell you the truth so that they can help you grow as well. So know that your sponsor and your sideline or whatever just wants to help you and love you and grow with you. So whatever feedback they're giving you, it's out of that, not anything else. And so humbly go to them and maybe ask them, like, what can I do better? What do you see that I'm good at, my strengths at, that I can help, grow in? And then maybe what's some that I can get better at? What does that look like? And so maybe those are the things that you do. And I cannot wait to see how you get uncomfortable this week and do the things that you haven't been doing, because that's what we're doing. We're becoming aware and we're going to move forward, because we all want to be emerald or diamond or whatever your picture looks like for your family. That's what we're here for. And so thank you guys for popping on. You guys amazing. Cannot wait to keep diving with you next week. I'm not for sure if it's Christina or Sarah, but it's going to be wonderful. It's Christina. Okay. Anyway, love you guys. Keep diving in and don't forget your challenges.